Passing the MDCN licensing examination isn't just about intelligence. It's about building a preparation system that is stronger than your self-doubt. I know that because just a few months ago, I wasn't wondering whether I was smart enough. I was wondering whether I could prepare well enough. I am Dr. Owolabidolakwo. I wrote the June MDCN examination and passed on my first attempt. And in this video, I want to share everything that genuinely helped me. Not because I think I found a secret, but because I know what it feels like to question yourself before an exam is important. This isn't another video that is simply going to tell you to study harder. Most people already know they need to study. The real question is, how do you study in a way that gives you the best chance of succeeding? Looking back after the exam, I realized everything that helped me could be grouped into 4 pillars. So make sure that you watch this video to the end because each pillar strengthens the next. Individually, they were helpful, but together, they are powerful. Now, I can't promise that following everything I'm about to share will automatically make you pass. Nobody can honestly promise that. But I do believe that if you apply these principles consistently, you'll become a much stronger candidate than you are today. Let's start with what I believe is the foundation of everything else. Pillar 1, your mindset. You don't become disciplined after you start preparing. You decide to become disciplined before preparation begins. The first thing I will say under mindset is that you need to be mentally ready before you start preparing. Last November, I genuinely knew I wasn't ready to take the exam. I had graduated the month before, and although my parents wanted me to write the exam that November, deep down, I knew I wasn't prepared mentally. Thankfully, that examination didn't hold, and looking back, that extra time was one of the greatest gifts I received from God last year. Now, when I talk about being mentally prepared, I'm not talking about intelligence. I'm not talking about whether you graduated with distinctions or barely made it out of medical school. I'm talking about something much simpler. Are you ready to consistently do the work this exam requires? Because discipline isn't something that magically appears halfway through preparation. It is a decision you make before preparation truly begins. For me, mental preparedness meant accepting that for a few months, my life would revolve around studying, practicing, revising, and repeating. Once I made peace with that, everything felt easier. I wasn't negotiating with myself every morning or waiting to feel motivated. I simply knew what I had to do and I got on with it. Another point is that you need to study for the doctor you are becoming, not just the exam you are writing. One mindset that completely changed how I studied for MDCN was this: after MDCN comes house job. For me, the exam wasn't the finish line, but the bridge to the next stage of my career. What I did was that for at least the first couple of months, I wasn't trying to memorize just enough to answer questions. I was trying to genuinely understand medicine again from the perspective of a graduate doctor. I kept things simple and sharp. When your goal becomes understanding instead of merely surviving the exam, your retention improves. You're no longer reading because you have to. You're reading because you are preparing for real patients you will eventually meet. And honestly, if your plan is to study for the MDCN exam at a surface level, you'll probably find it harder than you expect. The exam has a way of exposing gaps in your understanding. Medicine rewards comprehension, not memorization. So don't just ask yourself, can I pass this exam? Ask yourself, do I actually understand what I'm reading? Because that's the kind of knowledge you will carry into your career long after the exam is over. The third point is that you need to reduce responsibilities where you can. Preparation requires energy and energy is limited. If you are able to reduce work commitments or other major responsibilities during this period, I genuinely think it is worth considering. Does that mean everyone can? Of course not. Some people have jobs, some people have families, some people don't have the luxury of stepping away. If that's your reality, please don't be discouraged. It simply means that you will need to be more intentional with the time and the energy that you do have. Preparation is already demanding, and extra responsibilities will only make it much harder. So if there are commitments you can postpone, delegate, or say no to for a while, give yourself that permission, because this season won't last forever, but the focus that you give it now can make a huge difference in the outcome of things. Pillar 2, systems. Motivation gets you started. Systems keep you moving when motivation disappears. This is probably where my preparation changed the most. I stopped relying on how I felt. Instead, I built systems that helped me study consistently. One of the many things I did was to always create timetables and daily to-do lists. I made more timetables than I can count. At some point, it honestly felt like I was wasting paper, but every one of those timetables served a purpose. What it did for me was that it removed a lot of guesswork. I always knew what I had covered, what was left, and what I needed to do next. You see, when your preparation is organized, your mind spends less energy wondering where to begin. Another point is to make notes that work for you. I'm not someone who can read something once and remember it forever, so I always make notes. At least 1 or 2 months before the examination, I was still creating notes. There were days I felt like I was actually moving too slowly because I was just wondering if I was wasting time while other people were, using those times I was wasting to actually practice questions. But I soon realized that those notes became one of the reasons why revision was manageable for me later. The important lesson here isn't that everyone must make notes. Please understand that. Instead, you need to understand how you learn best. And you need to build your preparation around that, not around someone else's study style. Another point that is a cheat code is to give every disease the same structure. That was one habit that improved both my written performance and my OSCE performance. I was studying diseases using the same framework every time. Definition, classification, causes or risk factors, clinical features, complications, investigations, and management. You see, when every topic follows the same mental structure, revision becomes faster, issue taking becomes more logical, and management discussion becomes clearer. So instead of remembering isolated facts, you are remembering organized knowledge when you follow a specific structure. You can try that out as well because that was something that actually helped me. A very important point is to build repeatable OSCE frameworks. The tutorial centers will usually teach you useful frameworks for your OSCE section, but it goes without saying that you need not just to learn them or to practice them as well, but you don't just stop there because the goal isn't to just sound exactly like everyone else. The goal is to understand the structure so well that it becomes natural to you and it becomes unique to your examiner. So you have to do extra work to adapt each structure and refine it and organize it in a way that makes perfect sense to you. You see, your framework should be something you can recall under pressure because you created the sequence better for yourself. And that's what usually builds confidence during OSCEs. Pillar 3, community. Medicine was never meant to be learnt alone, and MDCN isn't meant to be prepared for alone either. One of the biggest mistakes we make during preparation is believing that we have to figure everything out ourselves. It's important that you join study groups. I honestly cannot overstate how valuable study groups are for me. It's crazy how sometimes one discussion can save you hours of confusion. Sometimes someone shares a question bank you've never seen before. Sometimes someone explains a concept differently and suddenly everything clicks. Sometimes they simply just keep you accountable. You don't need every group to survive. You just need enough opportunities to learn from different people. So join few groups if available and if possible. Another important point, if I must say, is that you need to be intentional about your friendship. Preparation is contagious, but so is complacency. The people around you quietly influence your habits. You don't want to surround yourself with people who procrastinate studying or with less determination as you. Find 1 or 2 people who genuinely want to succeed, people who challenge you, people who keep to their word. You don't need a large circle, but you need the right one. Pillar 4, deliberate practice. Confidence isn't built by reading more, it is built by repeatedly testing what you know. This is where preparation becomes performance. Knowledge only becomes useful when you practice retrieving it. And that's why you need to repeat until it becomes second nature. Repetition isn't proof that you are forgetting, even though it might seem like it is. Instead, it is proof that you are learning. The major reason why the MDCN examination preparation is exhausting is because you will revise the same things many times. That's the new normal that you have to be wired by. Every repetition strengthens recall. Every repetition makes information easier to retrieve under pressure. And that's the part that you don't know, especially in the early days. So don't be discouraged by repetition. It is very discouraging, I won't lie, very, very discouraging, but don't be. Just expect it, accept it, and embrace it. Another point is that you need to start practicing question banks early. Don't wait until you feel ready. I remember I started practicing question banks more seriously later than I would have wanted because I felt like I needed to read to my satisfaction first before attempting to practice, but don't try it. You see, question banks are also part of preparation. As you are studying, you are preparing. Also, when you are practicing or you are solving questions, you are preparing as well. But most times we see question banks as the reward for preparation. It's like, now that I've studied, I have to practice questions. For me, I would advise that you start practicing questions early, even if your scores are terrible. Most especially if your scores are terrible. Because it's better you discover your weaknesses 2 months before the examination than on the examination day. And don't only answer the questions, study the topics behind each question for MCQs, but most especially for OSCEs. Because, for example, if an OSCE patient asks you to counsel a patient about contraception, don't just memorize the counseling points, but revise contraception as a whole subject on its own. That's where deeper understanding comes from. Another point worth mentioning is that you need to protect your attention. One thing I learned during preparation is this: discipline isn't only about saying yes to studying, it's also about saying no to distractions. For me, that means deleting or archiving my social media apps, turning off notifications, keeping my phone on do not disturb, watching fewer movies, engaging in lesser calls and conversations with friends and families. Brutal, I know. But I did all this to create an environment where studying became the easiest thing for me to do. I understand that your environment may look different, and that's okay. But the important thing is that you need to create an environment that supports your focus instead of competing with your focus. You understand? Another beautiful point is to make AI your study assistant. One resource I honestly think more candidates should take advantage of is AI. Don't completely replace your study with AI. At least not for everything. One thing AI does, it makes studying more efficient in a way. So I used AI to summarize notes sometimes. I used AI to simplify difficult concepts. I used AI to generate practice questions, to organize information, to explain topics differently when I didn't understand them the first time. AI just should not, replace your thinking, but it can absolutely improve how you learn. Medicine already demands hard work. So whenever possible, you should combine hard work with smart systems like AI. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to share. Although I want to add that I watched a lot of YouTube videos on physical examination. That's for the OSCE part of the exam. And most especially, I watched videos from Dr. Miriam Ahmed Al Mustafa. Our videos were very detailed and helped me retain knowledge and remember better. You should check out our channel if you need assistance with how to perform physical examination, especially if you're an online student or if you're offline as well. I'm sure there are like 100 other tips I could give, because honestly, advice about preparing for this exam is super endless. But these are the lessons that genuinely made the biggest difference for me. These are the things that I wished someone had emphasized on before I started preparing. Looking back, I don't think I passed because I was the smartest person preparing for the exam. I passed because over time I built preparation process I could trust. On the days that I didn't feel confident, I relied on my systems. When I felt overwhelmed, I leaned on people around me. When I got things wrong, I kept practicing instead of doubting myself. And slowly, almost without noticing, I became a stronger candidate than the version of me who started. If you are watching this video before your own MDCN exam, I hope you can take at least one thing from the following things I'll mention now. You see, don't measure yourself by how much you've forgotten. Measure yourself by how willing you are to keep rebuilding what you know. Preparation isn't about becoming perfect. It's about showing up consistently and becoming a little better than you were yesterday. You've already made it through medical school, and that's not a small feat, It proves that you are capable of learning difficult things. Now, your job is simply to prepare intentionally, trust the process, and keep going, even on the days when you don't feel like you are making progress. One day you will look back and you actually realize that all the long study sessions, all the questions you got wrong, all the moments you doubted yourself were just quietly preparing you for the doctor that you are becoming. If this video helped you in any way, I would really appreciate it if you shared it with someone preparing for the MDCN exam. You never know who might need a little encouragement today. Thank you so much for watching. I genuinely wish you all the best in your preparation. I'll be rooting for you, and hopefully the next time we meet, it will be on the other side of your induction as a licensed medical doctor in Nigeria. Take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.